Hello, my name is Richenelson Metayer, and this is my critical reflection. How does my magazine follow conventions? My magazine follows a variety of conventions, starting off with my cover. My cover was inspired by a plethora of example covers, but these are some of the main covers that helped me to design and structure my cover. They are known as Sports Week, the Basketball Magazine, and Inside Basketball. In reference of these magazines, I implemented some of their features like the masthead, the main image/subjects, cover lines, leading article, and the barcode. I implemented the features of the mastheads from the three references to create my masthead. What I took from the masthead was the masthead's font and design. The fonts were very big and bold. However, the whole masthead was not big and bold. The reference would target specific words to make big and bold. This technique was used to highlight the topic that the magazine was directed on, and the other words in the masthead were made small and located above or below the big bolded word. To visually appealing design aspects, I chose white as the color of my font to contrast with the main image and its background. It would also be made for visual purposes. It would be clearer to the audience to read and catch their attention. In my genre, sports magazines like the use bold colors that can stand out in the midst of the page. You can also see these factors being used in the references. Moving on to the main image/subjects. My main image is composed of a subject posing for this photo. He is wearing a bright dark blue basketball jersey with the number 1 located on the middle of the back of his jersey. The main images are mostly contain of only one subject. This is due to the fact that the covers are trying to focus on the main character of their stories. When taking this photo, I took reference of the main image. It portrayed the subject, the main images. It portrayed the subject as a big and mysterious person. I wanted to do the same with mine, so I took a similar backshot photo and got closer to the subject to make their back look bigger. Next is the cover lines. These cover lines are very relevant to my subject. They talk about the accomplishments done in certain sports. For my font, I chose a very bold and easy to read font for the audience. Combined with the color of the font, which is white, it helped to contrast with the background of the main image. I aligned all of my cover lines on one side, just as my references did. This was done to add organization and detail to the cover. My genre, the common number of cover stories was 3 to 4 stories. I took into consideration and added 3 cover line stories. In addition, my lead article, the name of my lead article is The Young Prodigy. This was a fitting title for my story because of how the main character is a young athlete with a lot of talent. This was a cover-worthy lead article because most sports magazines likes to write something that grabs the reader's attention, and a young talented athlete is a fitting example of that. For the font, I wanted to make the size bigger, and the main reason to that is because I wanted to differentiate the leading article from the cover lines. Some other steps I took to ensure that the audience would be able to tell the leading article and the cover lines apart was changing the font and positioning it on the left side of the cover rather than the right. However, I did keep white as a color because I wanted to follow a certain color palette. I chose to have the leading article on the left side of the cover to allow for more view of the main image. For my issue date, I placed it on the bottom of the cover in small font. I did this to help with the organization of my magazine and so it would attract my audience view to the main image and the other features of the magazines. Although my references did not have a clear issue date, through my research I was able to figure out that most sports magazines have their issue date was located on the top of their page or the bottom. I chose the issue date to based off the time I finished the cover line. Based off the time I finished the cover. I included a barcode because most sports magazines have barcodes to add to design purposes. It can also be used for checkout or distinguishing between issues. The table of contents. For my cover, I used one color for the fonts, which was white, and the main image consisted of black due to my hair, dark blue due to the shirt, and a mix For my cover, I used one color for the fonts, which was white, and the main image consisted of black due to my hair, dark blue due to the shirt, and a mix of blue and light blue. These colors were used to add a vibrant cover that has a big array of colors. Now is my table of contents. The design of my table of contents is very simple and straightforward. I did this so it wouldn't be very compact and hard to read. I made the title big and bold to be noticed by the audience. Then I put the stories and cover stories on the left of the page. I created a line to separate the photos and the stories. The next thing I did was write captions. Underneath the images to add a brief description of what was going on in the photos. I also made the text white and the background the same color as the main image's background. I did this so the main image on the table of contents could contrast and give an organized look. My table of contents is one page to represent how the sports table of contents usually involves one page. I have a surplus amount of stories to give my audience a good amount of stories to read. The stories involved in my magazines consist in the athletic ability of young sports community. This makes sense for my story because it is within the genre of my topic. I created my cover stories after looking at the different references and examples. I was able to make my cover stories out to stand out on the table of contents by adding a section for the cover stories. I added a brief description under the stories to give a better explanation of the stories to the readers. For the magazines, I used 3 photos. The way I chose which photo stories would need a photo was based on the topic, and my topic was mainly focused on basketball. The photos usually was about the athletes practicing for the next game. I created a sense of visual hierarchy by having different fonts for the descriptions and titles of the table of contents. My magazines would have up to 30 pages. my cover story would fall in the middle of the book to make audience have to look through the magazine. Moving on to my double page spread story. I took a deep dive into the sports genre and talked about an athlete that's making a big name for himself and is accomplishing incredible feats. It talks about his life story and the challenges he might have faced throughout his life. My story is used a lot, but with different athletes. This is a great example of my genre since it is between the sports industry, and most sports magazines that I've seen have had their story located on the right page and then have the image be on the left page. They would also put the main story at the top of the page. I made mine similar to this and added all of their features. However, I did add a caption to image and placed the headline on both pages. I only use one image for my double page spread because it was not commonly found to have more than one image because the stories were only trying to convey one person. The caption I used for my photo was put on the left page within the image. I used the image to give a better description of the photo. I used the caption to give a better description of the image. It was relevant to the story because it talked about the athlete. I placed the headline of the top of the page with the subhead and the author beneath it. I chose to place them there to add a aesthetically pleasing effect to the double, and it was more commonly found there. I chose to use big, bolded fonts so that it would be easier to recognize on the page. The headline says Young Prodigy and the subhead says the next All-Star. My thought process through this was creating a visually appealing double page spread. They tied to the story because it basically summarizes the story. I placed the story on the right page. I placed it in column form to make it easier for the audience to read and make them think there is less to read because it looks shorter. I also used a drop capital to add some visually appealing effects. My folio is located at the bottom of the right page. It is used to tell the page number on both and the table of contents and double page spread. This is my color palette. It consists of the colors blue, black, red, and white. I added all of these colors to help contrast and give visually appealing effects to my magazine. How does my product represent social groups or issues? The sports genre media represents social groups by profiling certain athletes that have high potential to be outstanding athletes. They can highlight their diverse backgrounds by talking about their story and where they originated from. By doing this, it can encourage diversity and give different perspectives to other social groups. Through telling their story, some athletes tend to talk about the certain challenges they have faced throughout their journey and touch on some topics like discrimination, gender inequality, and economic hardship. This is just some of the many ways that the sports genre of magazines can represent social groups. I've taken this into heavy consideration and integrated into my story to represent the success and struggles my athlete has faced along his career. My target audience. Although the target audience for my sports can vary depending on the sport, the core audience typically falls between the ages of 18 and 54-year-old. The income. Sports magazine targets towards those above average household income. The gender. Traditional sports magazines have leaned towards a male audience, but the gap is narrowing. Overall, sports magazines tend to target passionate fans who enjoy deep dives and analysis and insider information on their favorite sports. These are some of the surveys that help to back up my target audience and stuff they like. The distribution process. My magazine engages the audience through its compelling content. It talks in-depth analysis and features of the sports, such as basic game reports, expert analysis, player profiles, and behind-the-scenes stories that help delve deeper into the world of sports. My magazine can also indulge in the stories that people are interested in showcasing inspiring stories of an athlete. I also use high-quality photography, creative layouts, and eye-catching covers. My cover also features a star athlete. I also understand the audience, so I can cater to its specific interests. I pay attention to readers' feedback, and it is within the current times. I also use a diverse amount of ways to distribute my product through social media platforms such as Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, and furthermore. I will spread my product through the cities to help get a better distribution process. My audience varies, so if anyone of them that receives my product, they can enjoy my magazine. I would like to partner with stores to make sure that people can acquire my magazine. My production skills. My production skills over the course of the project have developed over the course of this project. I have learned to use Photopea and the many things that come with it. I learned about background removal systems and to use fonts from font.com and from Photopea. The background removal systems requires you to add an image with like a main colorway that you can remove to only portray one subject. I have integrated this into my magazines in some of the photos that were helped to use. I've also learned about how to add brushes to Photopea. I have learned different camera angles, shots to take for my magazine. Camera angles and shots to take for my magazine. Before we delve on that topic, let us go back to how I have learned to use font.com. Font.com has allowed me to really tap into my creative aspects and help to design my magazines in ways that help brighten my future. Now let's go on to the brushes. The brushes, I have learned to download brushes from different websites and add them onto different photos in case I need for more visually appealing design aspects. I've learned a plethora of design. I learned a plethora of camera angles to suit for my magazines. I've learned about the high angles, the low angles, the bird's eye view, the medium shots, the close-ups, the long shots, and a variety of different kinds. It helped me to implement this into my magazine to help give the reader a better experience. How will I integrate technologies? I integrated software technologies, hardware, and online for this project by using my cell phone, my computer, and the school's laptop. I've used my cell phone to help take photos. I've used my computer to help edit and create the magazines, and I've used the school laptops to further help with the learning of using Photopea and other websites. Unfortunately, our school was not able to afford certain software editing systems, but we were able to work around these difficulties and use photopea.com. Our school did not have such cameras, so we had to resort to using our cell phones to take pictures. Although Photopea was very free, it was not the best of quality. It was often very laggy at times, but it would be sufficient enough. I have used Google Sites to help create my blog and showcase my learnings off the AICE Media Studies class. It also helped me to showcase the progress in which I've learned these things. And that is the end of my critical reflection.